In Victorian Britain, nearly every Cornish household depended on contraband just to get by. Yet it was women, disguised as ordinary wives, mothers, and business owners, who built the smuggling networks that funneled more illicit spirits onto British shores than all the legal ports combined. They outsmarted customs, coordinated entire villages, and turned church bells into alarm systems, risking everything in a world where even children were trained as lookouts. But how did female ingenuity make the British coastline a fortress against the law? And why did whole communities proudly defend these queens of the contraband coast? The answer upends everything you think you know about crime, courage, and survival. A single pound of tea in Victorian Britain carried a duty of 119%, more than doubling the price before it ever reached a family's table. Spirits like brandy faced a levy of £10 per gallon, a sum that dwarfed the weekly wages of most coastal labourers. These taxes turned everyday goods into luxuries, and the lure of smuggling was not simply greed, but survival. In 1831 alone, customs officials seized 1.2 million gallons of illicit spirits, while 4.5 million gallons entered through legal ports. The numbers reveal a shadow economy operating alongside the official one, with every bottle and bale representing a choice between hunger and the law. For many Cornish villagers, smuggling was not a sideline, it was the mainstay. Local histories suggest that by the 1840s, 4 out of 5 coastal households in Cornwall played some part in the trade, whether storing casks under floorboards or passing word of a revenue cutter's approach. Profits could reach 5 to 10 times the original investment, enough to keep a family afloat through lean fishing seasons or failed harvests. The government's crackdown was relentless, but the economic engine of smuggling kept turning, driven by the simple arithmetic of duty and demand. Church bells rang out in carefully coded patterns, 3 quick peals for danger, a single slow toll once the coast was clear. On the cliffs, women and children kept watch, scanning the horizon for the telltale sails of revenue cutters. A flick of a shawl, a lantern swung twice, or a child's dash down a narrow lane could set an entire community in motion. Parish records from the 1840s describe bells sounding at odd hours, while Coast Guard correspondence complains of warnings that always seem to reach the smugglers first. In some villages, the wives of Coast Guards quietly passed information to neighbours, blurring the line between law and loyalty. When customs men appeared, it was often women who sent word, sometimes by whisper, sometimes with a well-timed errand. Children, trained from a young age, darted between cottages and fields, relaying messages no outsider could hope to intercept. Assize minutes from Cornwall reveal another layer of protection. Local juries, made up of neighbours and kin, refused to convict smugglers in nearly 9 out of 10 cases. The records note insufficient evidence or simply a reluctance to punish those who kept the village alive. Through these silent codes and close-knit alliances, women became the first and last line of defence, turning entire communities into watchful guardians of the contraband coast. In the tangled lanes of South Cornwall, stories gathered around the name Mary Blewett, A woman said to command a network of safe houses stretching from the fishing harbors of Hale to the inlets near Fowey. Folklore paints her as the architect of a contraband empire, orchestrating landings with the precision of a naval officer. On nights when the moon hung low, fishing boats slipped quietly into secluded coves, their holds packed with barrels and bales. Blewett's network moved into action before the first customs lantern flickered on the horizon. Runners, often women and children, ferried goods inland along routes known only to locals. Cottages with hidden cellars or false walls became temporary vaults for tea, brandy, and silk. Parish ledgers, from the era a whisper of fortunes that vanished before the taxman arrived. One estimate claims the value of goods moved under Blewett's watch reached £10,000 in a single year, a sum that dwarfed the income of most coastal villages. No court record lists her name, and not a single prosecution appears in the assize rolls. Yet, customs men and coast guards alike spoke of Blewett in cautious tones, blaming her elusive network for foiling raid after raid. The fishing fleet's comings and goings served as camouflage, with landings timed to the daily rhythm of the catch. Every cove, every cottage, every family seemed woven into the web, shielding the trade from prying eyes. Whether Blewett was a single mastermind or the sum of many women's efforts, the legend endures, a testament to the quiet command and community loyalty that kept Cornwall's contraband moving under the very noses of the law. Liverpool's docks in the 1870s bustled with cargo and opportunity, but not all of it was legal. As steamers unloaded crates of Virginia tobacco, a new kind of courier threaded through the crowds, women in layered skirts and heavy petticoats, each carrying a secret. Port records from 1875 list over 500 pounds of seized tobacco from female smugglers. Yet customs officers quietly admitted that far more slipped past. Most of these women moved in small groups, timing their arrivals with the shift changes of dock labourers. Each run meant 2 to 4 pounds of tobacco stitched into false hems or hidden in corsets, enough for a tidy profit, but not so much as to draw suspicion. The trick was repetition. Some made 3 or 4 trips in a single day, blending into the steady flow of wives and daughters collecting pay or bringing meals to the docks. Customs men faced a dilemma. Victorian propriety frowned on searching women too closely, and the fear of scandal or complaint often outweighed the value of a few pounds of contraband. Liverpool Mercury sketches from the period show bustling quaysides with women's skirts billowing wide, the telltale sign for those who knew where to look. Sometimes a sharp-eyed officer might spot a bulge or catch a whiff of tobacco, but more often the women passed unchallenged. The system thrived on these small acts of defiance, turning everyday clothing into tools of the trade and the city's gender norms into a shield. In Liverpool, ingenuity and nerve counted for as much as speed or secrecy, and the tobacco women became masters at working the margins of the law. On a stormy night in 1798, exciseman Daniel Callayan was beaten to death near Polperro while trying to seize a cache of brandy. The inquest named the crime murder, but no one from the crowd that gathered on the cliffs ever faced conviction. Parliament took notice. Debates over the Hovering Act cited the killing as proof that ordinary law had failed along the coast. And by 1816, the government established the Coast Guard to bring order to the smuggling strongholds. The risks for those caught escalated sharply. Men faced transportation for 7 years, or the gallows if found armed. Women, though less often prosecuted, could still be sentenced to months or even years in prison. Violence between revenue men and smugglers grew more frequent, and reports from the 1830s and the 1840s describe Coast Guard patrols attacked with stones and clubs. But as the years wore on, the tide began to turn. Duty cuts in the 1860s slashed the profits of smuggling, and the arrival of the railway gave customs officers the speed to strike inland before goods could vanish. The old order, where entire communities shielded the trade, was slowly giving way to a new era of enforcement and economic change. Anne Cargill's story ends not in legend, but in the cold ledgers of the Scottish borders. In 1867, her operation came undone after excise men traced casks of untaxed spirits to a fish processing warehouse she managed on the coast. For years, she had moved whiskey and brandy across the border, using fishing boats as cover, blending shipments of fresh catch with barrels of contraband. The authorities finally caught up with her, and the trial drew crowds to the courthouse in Berwick. The charge sheet listed not only illegal spirits, but the use of a legitimate business as a front, a tactic that had protected her for so long. The sentence was harsh. She was given 5 years in prison, though records show she served only 3 years before her release. For Cargill, the cell doors closed on a life spent walking the tightrope between survival and the law. Her convictions signaled the growing reach of enforcement and the shrinking space for smuggling's old guard. The women of Britain's smuggling coastlines blurred the line between survival and defiance, an underground legacy now woven into local pride. Even today, debates over taxation and civil resistance echo their ingenuity. History reminds us, when laws feel unjust, ordinary people still find extraordinary ways to push back. Share your thoughts below.